Welcome to the Shock Your Potential podcast with your host, Michael Sherlock. We all have potential, but sometimes we need inspiration to get us to our peak performance. Whether you are starting out in your career, ready to move up the corporate ladder, or taking the leap into entrepreneurship, Michael's guests provide powerful tools and resources to shock your potential. Shock Your Potential is a global professional development training company committed to your unique journey. Learn more about us today at shockyourpotential.com. Listen in to today's expert.
Thank you for joining me on another episode of Shock Your Potential, where all month long we are talking about leading with love. And all of my guests have very unique perspectives on this. And my guest today is going to have a lot of things to say about leading with love, especially when it comes to taking care of yourself. I'm just going to guess that. But let me tell you a little bit about her. After a complete health crash, Kristen Bowen created the Living the Good Life Naturally in 2002. Now, this complete health crash had a lot of components to it. Autoimmune issues, a series of failed surgeries. She was left bedridden and depressed with daily seizures. So, she couldn't have been in a good place there. Through research and looking for outside the box solutions, she discovered something pretty impressive, that to regain her health, she needed to build a strong foundation, which we all know, but maybe don't always pay attention to. And that foundation included food as medicine. And the number one building block that she found for optimal health is magnesium. I know we'll be able to talk about that a little bit because I found magnesium a little while ago as well. And as her health improved, she began to research and create natural baths and body products for herself. But soon friends and family wanted to know what was going on, especially when they had skin sensitivities. And she shared her knowledge freely just as a way to help out, but never intending to start a business, which sometimes happens with people. But when people said, hey, no, I want to pay you for it, she said, maybe there's an actual business in this. She had some small beginnings in the beginning in her basement kitchen. And that's how a lot of these businesses and companies really start. But now she's in warehouses, stores, online business. She's helped thousands of individuals reclaim their own health freedom. But this is what I really love about her bio. As she tells her clients, you are the CEO of your health. Let me be on your board of directors. So, Kristen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I love talking about shocking potential and all the things that can take us to. So
excellent. Well, let me give the floor to you for a little bit. I hit some of the highlights of your bio, but tell us a little bit more about you, your business, and how through what you do help people to shock their potential.
That crash at the time was the hardest, most horrific thing that had ever happened to our family. I lost 3.5 years, but looking back, it was the best thing that ever happened because it shocked me. It shocked me into taking more accountability for my health. And through that process, I learned some patterns that I thought were just my patterns, but as I've interacted with thousands of women, it's very common patterns that keep us disconnected from our health.
I agree. And that's, I know that every time I say this, I go, I know there's men listening to it and you're like, why is it we only focus on the women that might be more disconnected? But there is a historical precedence to this, that women are more likely to put the needs of their family ahead of their own, and they're more often to discount what's going on inside their own bodies. It just is the way. Sorry, guys. We get to earn this one, even though we don't want to.
So absolutely. It applies to men also. My focus is women. And I have a lot of men that follow the patterns. My focus is speaking to those women because I've found as women, we hold a very interesting component. And that is the minute that you get a woman feeling better, waking up energized, immediately she lifts those people around her. And she makes a difference to those people she's connected to, whether that be through her family, through her community, now through online, through a Zoom call that can be connected to the world. But she immediately starts to make a difference across the board. So definitely men have these same patterns. My focus is women.
So tell me, so I found magnesium the last year, I think, maybe probably a year and a half. And only because I was at my mom's house visiting. And I was talking to her about how I was struggling with sleep. And I've done a few things to help me with that. And she's like, well, why aren't you taking magnesium? I'm like, I've never taken magnesium. She's like, here's a bottle. So I took magnesium that night, and that was like the greatest night of sleep I'd had in a long time. And so I take one every night. I actually take one. I take a pill form, but I take it in
Right.
conjunction with a calcium and a vitamin D. Um, and it really does make a difference for me, but I've never really thought about it impacting anything else other than sleep. So tell me about magnesium. What do I need to
Oh,
know about it?
oh, let's talk
Oh,
magnesium.
Kristen's like, I'm ready.
Here we go. Okay.
I got a new
Here
audience.
we go. Okay. So when we talk about health, I want you to picture a three-legged stool. And on that stool with those three legs, we have minerals, we have mindset, and we have movement. And let's focus on the minerals. Our minerals need to be coming from our food.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where it's so important that we stay current, because your mom, my mom, they got their minerals from their food. Our food has changed because of over fertilization and industrial farming. We are not getting the minerals from our food. And so for us to take the same information that our parents used and apply it now, we can't make that work. And that's part of the frustration, is we keep doing these things, but we're not feeling better because we're missing nutrients, and minerals are where it's at. And the master mineral is magnesium. And so getting that magnesium, you experienced it. You slept better because magnesium is the relaxer mineral. It helps relax you. But it's so much more than that. It's so much more. And so my goal with magnesium is cell saturation.
Cell saturation. Okay. That reminds me of something that I probably learned in high school chemistry class. So, or biology, not chemistry, probably biology, but talk about that.
Okay, so cell saturation is where every cell is surrounded by magnesium.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot get there with oral synthetic magnesium. You would have digestive issues galore. It would give you diarrhea because oral synthetic magnesium moves through your digestion too fast. I want that optimal health. And part of my drive in creating that optimal health is I experienced that health crash when they did that bladder surgery, and I had an allergic reaction to the titanium. I lost 3.5 years of my life. I can't remember my kids. My youngest daughter, I have no memory of her learning to walk or talk. I was out of it. I was completely out of it. And so I know what it's like. I know the cost of being sick. I want optimal health, and it drives me. And to experience optimal health when your liver is functioning and your thyroid is converting from T4 into T3, and all of those pathways are open, vitamin D levels, which we know, especially right now, vitamin D levels are so important. Well, guess what? Vitamin D levels only drop when your magnesium drops. So low vitamin D is actually an indication that you've got low magnesium. And here's the problem of why we need upgraded magnesium. Synthetic orally isn't moving your red blood cell numbers. Now, you're getting benefit from it. You're sleeping better, which is great. But I want more than just sleeping better. I want optimal health. And so soaking in magnesium will get your saturation around your cell, uptaking it through your skin will move that red blood cell number and get you to optimal magnesium levels.
So that's fascinating. I had no idea about that, but that also makes sense of why they'll put magnesium in conjunction with vitamin D.
Absolutely.
And throw the calcium in there. And I know the vitamin D helps on that end too. So, so tell me about the products that you have created, so I know the soaks. I read in your notes some things about foot soaks, but is that just foot soaks or body soaks, or do you create things for people to ingest as well?
So you can soak in the magnesium, just your feet. You can use a small bowl and soak in magnesium, and your feet will act like the pump. And when you put thermal imaging while that person is soaking, you can see the magnesium being pumped up through the lymph system. You can put it in your bathtub and soak in your bath. We did find, and it was through quite an extraordinary way. My husband recently had double amputation. We cannot get his magnesium numbers up. He soaks in the tub and he lost his feet. Your feet act as the pump. So when you're soaking in that tub, a lot of times, and I know I did this, I'd put my magnesium in, I'd soak in the tub, I'd put my feet up on the end of the
Oh,
tub.
yeah, right.
And so I immediately reached out to my magnesium group, which is just a group of women that we just geek out over magnesium. And I said, okay, talk to me. Who hasn't gotten their numbers to move? You know, after testing your red blood cell, you can test it with a simple blood test. And a bunch of them raised their hand. And I said, okay, next question. Are you soaking in the bathtub? About 80% of them raised their hand. I said, okay, next question. Who's got their feet up on the tub? And most of them did. They dropped their feet. Every single one of them, their magnesium levels moved. So my husband says, hey, I got you. I learned. And so your feet are the pumps. You don't have to be a bath person to do it. If you are a bath person, we want you dropping your feet, because your feet are what will pump that magnesium up through your body and
Strange. Do you
help
know
you get.
why? Why your feet in particular?
Your feet are collect information. We were talking to a nurse, and we were sharing when my husband was going to have some things done, and she said, oh, that totally makes sense, because your feet are the information collectors. As you walk, they're collecting information. Impulses are, you know, the end of your nerves are in your feet. And so that absolutely makes sense to me. So more scientific than that, I do not know. I just know hard evidence of women that were struggling getting their red blood cell numbers to move, put their feet in, and it was day and night difference.
Well, not that, and I don't mean to have this be something that takes us on another path, but as you were talking about this, the first thing that popped into my mind are all those, like those foot pads that you put on that are supposed to detoxify your body. Mm-hmm. So you put it on and it's clear, and you take it off and it's all black, and it's pulled all the toxins out. So yeah, maybe there is something to that.
I don't know. I've never used those. I have no idea. I can't speak on those, but I can say magnesium is moved through the pumps in your feet. And so soaking your feet is such a powerful way to reach cell saturation.
So then how did you start, like, tell me about the products that you create. I didn't take a look at your site or anything. So like what do you create, and how do people use it?
So we have the magnesium soak. We also have a magnesium muscle cream that is not only one of my favorite products, but it's my passion project, because it has cocoa butter in it. And I realized years ago, as the company was growing, that cocoa butter is actually harvested by children and they're enslaved. And that's not cool. I don't want to build a company on the backs of children in a third world country. And so we started a Uganda project. And in that Uganda project, it's these amazing entrepreneurial women, and they harvest the cocoa butter. They're paid fairly. They work incredibly hard. They're resourceful like you cannot believe. And with that, they educate their little girls and have literally lifted their community. And so that magnesium muscle cream has that passion project involved with that cocoa butter. And Beatrice is the person there in Masaka, Uganda, that runs all of the cocoa butter production. And it's not 100%. They're not able to produce 100% of the cocoa butter that we use, but about 70% of what we use comes from there. And so I love that. We do a magnesium boosted bath bomb that again has that cocoa butter and a beautiful bath bomb with some scent and some colorant to make your bath look beautiful and relaxing. We do some supplements that I'm really passionate about that are a whole food way to get vitamin C and minerals. It's all about minerals. I'm constantly talking minerals, minerals, minerals. Get more minerals in. If your thyroid doesn't work, get more minerals. If your hormones aren't balanced, get more minerals. You'll feel the difference. If you're low energy, get more minerals. And so everything that we carry is because I haven't been able to find the quality or the value that I think is necessary in creating a product, because I've been there just chasing things, having them not work, having it be so expensive. My family lost everything financially. And so it helps me make sense of that whole mess that happened to provide a product that's incredible quality at incredible value. And it literally is very healing for me to put that puzzle piece together and come back full circle.
That's fabulous. When we first started talking, you were talking about how much our food today is lacking in minerals, and I do know that, and I don't really know the science behind it, but it's something that I've talked with many people about, and but I'm curious, are there do are there ways that we can still, I think my husband and I, we eat pretty healthy and we eat pretty clean,
Right.
a lot of whole foods. I still feel, I just wonder, can we still get at least a good portion of what we need out of food? And is it better from organic than not, or is there really a difference? I'm kind of always curious about people's takes on organic food and whether or not we're really seeing a great benefit to something that's labeled organic versus not.
So it's interesting. My husband's actually an entomologist, and we live here in California, which so much produce and what people eat come from California. And so I definitely am looking at this through his filter and his education in the field of entomology. And in terms of mineral content with magnesium in your food, organic versus non-organic does not make a difference.
Okay.
Because the uptake of the magnesium is not determined by organic versus non-organic. It's the quality of the soil and the movement of the nutrients. And just because certain things are not used on the plant, we still have a soil issue, whether it's organic or non-organic. We still have an industrial farming issue. You can drive down here in California in the San Joaquin Valley, a couple hours away, and you can drive down and it will have an organic almond farm, and then it will have a conventional almond farm. And the only difference between the two is the organic almond farm has some more grass on it. Now, that grass is shuttling some more nutrients, but you're still talking industrial farming. And the price point difference of those two is gargantuan. I mean, it's so out of touch for so many people. And so making that decision based on magnesium, you're not seeing a difference in magnesium levels in organic versus conventional because it's still industrial farming. Now, if you are purchasing foods that are dry farmed or purchasing foods that are set up in a permaculture system, or from someone at the I just went blank on the name, farmers market, and they're farming it and it's on a small scale, that's where your magnesium levels are going to be up. But we went down, we have a great farmers market, and we were there a couple months ago, and my husband said, all this food is coming from conventional and they're just hauling it in. And so you even have to be careful at the farmer's market and say, hey, where is this coming from? Just because you're buying it and there's a nice little tent and you're putting it in your little bag that you brought doesn't mean that that person grew that food. And so knowing where your food comes from, but those are the places that that food is going to have a magnesium boost, is in the permaculture system, in a dry farm system, in a small area instead of the big industrial farms. You're not seeing the magnesium levels there.
Before we get into our theme for the month, though, I have a question, because you keep talking about, knowing your magnesium levels. How in the world would I even know what my magnesium levels are?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought this up. So there is a really simple way that you can get that tested. A Western medicine most will not have this test. There are a few that are starting to run this test and have access to this test. It is a red blood cell, and there is a place that you can go online, and it's called, you can go to either request a test or walk in labs,
Mhm.
and you can search for magnesium red blood cell test, and it runs about 47, 52-ish dollars. You can almost always find a coupon code and get a little bit cheaper. Before you purchase that, though, is what you need to do is make sure that you have a lab near you. Now, I live here in Morro Bay, California, right on the central California coast, and I have 80 labs within
Mm.
40 miles. I have a good friend who lives in South Dakota, and she had to drive for 3.5 hours. And
Oh,
so please, you can just do a simple zip code search to find out if there's a lab, because as what you do is you pay for that, and then you print out your paper or take your phone and show your receipt on your phone. You take it to that lab, they draw your blood, and then they upload it to the account. And we want our red blood cell being between 6.3 and 7. A few years ago, they dropped that. And the lab said, you know what, 5 is good, because nobody was hitting those numbers. Just because everybody else is getting sicker doesn't mean I drop the standard for my body. So
right.
I still want that 6.3 and 7. And you brought something up with you and your husband that I want to touch base on, in that, can we get magnesium? We talked about that three-legged stool of
Mhm.
movement, minerals, and mindset. And this is where mindset comes into play, because your stress levels determine your magnesium burn rate. So I'd
Oh,
mentioned my husband recently had double amputation. That man truly and literally experienced that through the lens of, I can't change anything about it. I'm not letting it ruin my life. And he has the funniest jokes about his amputation. His first Halloween costume was a shark attack victim, and he just thought it was hilarious. I mean, that's just how he handled it. Now, he could have, like, oh my gosh, all this.
yep.
He wasn't willing to hand over another day of his life. And because of that, even though he'd been through that traumatic experience, he chose to have gratitude for what he had left. He goes, I've still got fingers and hands. I can see you. I can get around. It's a new way of
Yep.
life. And so, because his stress levels didn't go through the roof, he held on to his magnesium. How we choose to handle our response and react to trauma, little or big, it can even be a frustration.
Yeah.
How we handle that, we hold on to our magnesium, or the increased cortisol pushes the magnesium out through our urine. So that's why I call it a magnesium mindset. It's
Yeah.
not just about soaking in magnesium and getting it up. It's about making choices every day that help you hold on to the magnesium you have.
I love it. And actually, I think that's a great segue into the theme of the month, because I decided to make February's theme be about leading with love.
Mm,
And, yes, I mean in the workplace, because I think that's really important, but it also starts with us and how we take care of ourselves. But as you
right.
were talking, I was thinking about just the sheer fact of not only making a conscious choice of leading with love, but understanding that when we get irritated, we get mad, we get frustrated, that comes through not only to our own lives and physical beings, but to the people we work with and we work for and work around. And it's important to understand that there are longer term repercussions for even just getting annoyed. And thinking about it from a physical standpoint, it definitely has an impact. So what are your thoughts? What are your how would you, if somebody said, oh, Kristen, what do you think about leading with love? Does it really make a difference? Is it something we should embrace? What would you say?
Mm. Trying to shorten my thoughts because I just, oh, leading with love.
You're like, I could spend an hour on this.
Yes. So, first of all, looking at it through my filter of creating optimal health, if you're not loving your body, where it's at right now, why would it respond to you changing it? Think of that relationship with your body and put another human face on it. So you've got you and then the secondary human of your body. If that were you and I was constantly nagging and nitpicking and, oh, this isn't right and that's not right and this is wrong and this is bulgy here and, oh, I don't like how this looks here, I would not want to hang out with you and go to lunch because you would be draining to me. And we have so many women right now who have that internal dialogue with their body that until it's perfect, they're not willing to love on it. Why would that body change with all that nagging and nitpicking? It's that same relationship. And I see over and over the women that I work with as they learn to love where they're at right now, not when they've lost 5 pounds, not when the wrinkle is gone or the skin is better or whatever it is that they're working on, but they learn to love right now, that all of a sudden this journey of creating health becomes easier and it becomes a more loving journey instead of a frustrating, disheartening, beat yourself up kind of journey. So I think leading with love really starts with how we treat ourselves. And then we can extend more love to other people as we give that to ourselves.
I so agree. And it reminds me of another guest I had on this month who said, if you ever actually could tape the inner chatter, the things that you're telling yourself, and you played it out loud, and you really listen to it and listen to the way we talk to ourselves, we would be mortified. Mm-hmm. And we never would talk to anybody else the way we talk to ourselves in our heads. and as you said that, I went, oh my gosh, you're so right.
Think about it. How can we give authentically love to someone else if we're not authentically giving that to ourselves? And opening up that give-receive cycle actually opens up your opportunity to create more health. And if you're not giving that and receiving that yourself, you're not giving it authentically to others. And so I think it's a powerful cycle as we learn to give that more authentically to ourselves. It just naturally flows from us and lifts those people around us in the workplace.
I love it, Kristen. It's fantastic. This has been really, really enlightening, and I'm looking forward to checking stuff out. We'll have all your contact information on the show notes, but in case somebody right now is like, I need to find this, I need to find her, what's the best way for them to find you?
livingthegoodlifenaturally.com. And it makes me laugh when I say that because we picked that out so long ago before people even got on the web. So it's very long. livingthegoodlifenaturally.com is where it's all happening for us.
I love it. Well, before we go, do you have any last words of wisdom or pearls of advice for my listeners and viewers?
I do. Action over research. We have women scrolling and scrolling and scrolling their health like they scroll social media, and they think they've done all of these things to create optimal health, when in actuality, they've only researched. I promise there are simple things that we can be doing right now to take a micro action that will walk us more toward health than 3 hours worth of research. So action over research.
Excellent. I love it. I agree with that as well. Kristen, thank you so much for sharing not only your knowledge, but your passion for this. I really have enjoyed having you as a guest, and I am so glad we are connected.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I'm always in awe of people who do podcasts. I started one and it's so much work behind the scenes. And so I'm always in awe when I come onto someone else's, all the puzzle pieces. So for people like me, that was too many puzzle pieces, I thank you for your podcast that I could come on, and thank you for all that behind the scenes work of all the puzzle pieces you put together so that I can be a guest on your podcast.
There's a lot of people that make this look easy.
Oh,
and it's not me.
It is. There are so many pieces. So thank you for having me on as a guest.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Shock Your Potential podcast. Learn more about us today at shockyourpotential.com, including details on Michael's 2 best-selling books, Tell Me More, how to ask the right questions and get the most out of your employees, and sales mixology, why the most potent sales and customer experiences follow a recipe for success. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and like us today.